If Liverpool want to dominate the Premier League for the next 2 to 3 years, then they should break the bank and sign Alexander Isak. Whether Newcastle are not interested in selling at this point in time, that is a totally different story, because at the end of the day, every single player out there has a price on him. It is about Liverpool firming up their interest to say, we are willing to pay this much, because that is the kind of value we would attach on a player like Alexander Isak. Welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome to the community, all our new subscribers and the usual suspects. Thank you so much for your continued love and support to this channel as we continue to grow. So if you're new here, kindly like this video, leave me a comment down in the comment section, but also subscribe to the channel while at it. Now, Liverpool did approach formally Newcastle on Wednesday over the signing of Alexander Isak. Now, no formal bids have been made, but it is being widely reported that the Reds are willing to make a bid in the region of £120 million to try and sign the 25-year-old Swedish winger, who I believe personally, given the latest trends in as far as player value goes in the transfer window, is much more valued than £120 million. But if I'm Liverpool, I'm breaking the bank to sign Alexander Isak. And hear me out on this one. If you've already made a financial outlay in the excess of £100 million, of course £100 million being the guaranteed fees, plus expected add-ons in the region of £16 million for Florian Wirtz to sign him for Bayer Leverkusen. Now, for a player like Alexander Isak, Premier League proven, in his prime age, 25, why not spend even more? Why not break the bank to sign Alexander Isak? £120 million, I think, would be slightly low or slightly below what the actual valuation of the player would be. £130 million, then that is a good conversation to have. Plus, achievable add-ons rising to £150 million. And then Liverpool can go ahead and dominate the Premier League for the first time since it became the Premier League for the next 2 to 3 years, because you would have a prime reliable striker. His injuries can be a bit of a concern, but his track record in the Premier League alone has shown signs of progress that he is capable of playing more than 30 games in a Premier League season. He arrived at Newcastle as their record signing for about £63.5 million from Real Sociedad in 2022. At the time when they bought him from Real Sociedad, he had not had the best of seasons when you look at his numbers for the 2021-2022 season, and yet Newcastle spent that big. They decided to take a chance on him, and that has paid off. In his debut campaign in the Premier League, he made 22 Premier League appearances, scored 10 goals and provided 1 assist. While the subsequent season, 2023-2024, he made 30 Premier League appearances, scored 21 goals, and I think provided 3 assists, giving him an overall 24-goal involvement. And then last season, 2024-2025, was his best season in a Newcastle jersey in as far as the Premier League alone is concerned. He made 34 appearances, 4 games shy of the total number of games in the Premier League. So what do you mean he does struggle with injuries? I mean, if you have a player in your squad that does struggle with injuries, but he's still capable of making 34 appearances in a season, then sign him up. Let the backup player fill in with the other 4 games. So in that season, he scored, which was last season, he scored 23 goals and provided 6 assists. Only 1 goal contribution shy of the 30-goal mark. Now, imagine you have Alexander Isak, who is capable of a 29-goal involvement in a Premier League season. Add him to Mohamed Salah, who last season scored 28 goals and provided 18 assists. The 46-goal involvement. Add that to Luis Diaz, who across all competitions scored 17 goals, but in the Premier League alone scored 13 goals and provided 5 assists. Add that to Cody Gakpo. Add that to Florian Wirtz. Add that to Alexis McAllister's goal contributions. Add that to Dominic Soboslai's goal contributions and overall creativity from that midfield. And then Liverpool, I think, would go on to dominate the Premier League for the next 2 to 3 years. I know Liverpool would want to achieve what Manchester City have done, what their rivals Man United did when they won the Premier League title in 2007, 2008, and 2009, before they conceded it to Chelsea in 2010. But they would want to do that. Manchester City have gone on to win the Premier League title for 4 consecutive seasons. That was 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024 before Liverpool disbanded them. Now, if you do get yourself a player like Alexander Isak, you are bound to dominate. You are bound for for that Premier League dominancy to go ahead and also rewrite history. I know they've done it in the past before the league was rebranded to the Premier League. But in as far as the Premier League is concerned, they've only won it twice. Under Jurgen Klopp in 2020 and also last season in 2025 with Arne Slot. So you've added Florian Wirtz, you've signed a very young good left back in Milos Kakes, you've added Jeremy Frimpong to your right back, you've signed Georgi Mamadashvili, the goalkeeper, around 24-25 is going to debut is Alisson Wamzesbeker. And you still Virgil van Dijk. That's the spine of the team. You still have Mohamed Salah. That's the spine of the team. We are talking about a team that already won the Premier League last season, that is beaming of confidence, that were at the top of the UEFA Champions League format. They finished top of that. Never mind that they lost out to PSG. I mean, it became to a game of chances. As soon as that game ended up in penalties. With penalties, anything can happen. You could easily lose to a Plymouth Agile, as Liverpool did. You could lose to the smallest of teams, even a non-league team, if it goes to penalties. So we cannot really fault them at that. But make the addition of Alexander Isak, and you've already made a good team better by bringing in those players. Florian Wirtz, Florian Wirtz, Milos Kakes, Jeremy Frimpong, Mamadashvili. You've already made the team better. But what takes it from better to best is the signing of Alexander Isak. And I said to you, Liverpool, break the bank and get yourselves Alexander Isak. We all know you have Darwin Núñez, but it hasn't fared out the way you had hoped it would when you signed him from Benfica back in 2022. It has not really worked out that well. And of course, Napoli have since cooled down their interest in the 26-year-old Uruguayan international. But we do know for a fact that Liverpool want to move him on, And by the way, signing a player like Alexander Isak could be what tips the scales further in Liverpool's favor to perhaps convince Luis Diaz to say, look here, you still have a future here. We are still, fighting to be the best. We want to win the UEFA Champions League and we want to do it with you while you're here, despite interest from Barcelona and Bayern Munich, stay here and do it with us. So Liverpool break the bank and get Alexander Isak. His numbers are nothing to be challenged. Remember, we are talking about a player that scored against Arsenal in that semi-final of the Carabao Cup as they beat Arsenal home and away by 2-0 respectively in either fixture. We are talking about a player that scored against Liverpool in the final of the Carabao Cup to help Newcastle lift their Carabao Cup title, their first major trophy in 71 years. That's a player you break the bank for. You've done everything good so far in this transfer window. Just make it perfect by signing Alexander Isak. However, on the other hand, if you're Newcastle, the best signing you can make in this transfer window is retaining Alexander Isak, because you've qualified for the UEFA Champions League, you've won the Carabao Cup, which gives you confidence to start competing with the big boys. You want to build a big project that goes on to rival the Premier League giants, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester City, and possibly Man United if they can bounce back. Let's not forget, Manchester United are an old lion. Just because they are old doesn't mean that they can be discounted off. You never know. Things could flip and suddenly Ruben Amorim becomes, the next Pep Guardiola, a magician of some sort, and brings back Man United to the forefront. So if you want to stay in those conversations and compete with the big boys and achieve UEFA Champions League football season after season, not this business of qualifying one season, miss the next, and then go back the following season. But if you want to go to the UEFA Champions League season in, season out, then keeping Alexander Isak is a no-brainer. It doesn't matter if Liverpool bring £200 million on table, whether that would help with your situation with the profit and sustainability rules, whether it helps with the financial fair play rules. It doesn't matter. It matters that you keep Alexander Isak because he is capable of taking you to the UEFA Champions League. He is capable of bringing silverware. We saw that last season. He is capable of firing you to that. So if it means that you keep Alexander Isak and finish in the top 4 next season, That means UEFA Champions League football. That means possibly another £100 million coming in. If you do it for 2-3 consecutive seasons, then you would have achieved what Liverpool would have paid you for Alexander Isak. I know in Newcastle trying to push to sign Hugo Ekitike from Eintracht Frankfurt, who they are trying to fight for with Liverpool, it is trying to show intent to players like Bruno Guimaraes, to players like Alexander Isak, that we are trying to build something. We are trying to build a long-lasting project. We are trying to fight with the big boys. We are trying to compete with them. That's why we are bringing these kinds of players, so that they can play alongside with you, so that in your absence, we have people that can keep us competitive until, you recover from whatever injury you may have suffered, That's why we are spending £55 million to sign a 23-year-old Anthony Elanga from Nottingham Forest. That's why we are trying to price out Man City in wanting to sign our right back, Tino Livramento. That's why we are telling them £80 million. We know he's not worth that. We just want to price them out of the move. And they lose interest, because we are overvaluing him. We want to retain our big players. We want to sign a good centre back, That's why we are interested in a player like McGay. He's a Crystal Palace captain. That's why we are making these moves, so that we build a sustainable project, so that we build a project that can fight at the most top of levels. You want PSG to return to St. James's Park and beat them again. You want Bayern Munich to come there at the UEFA Champions League and feel the gravitas of playing at St. James's Park. You want Barcelona to come and you can go to toe with them just because you have the right set of players. You may lose to them because it takes time to build a team that can beat up against Barcelona, Real Madrid, PSG, Borussia Dortmund, Bayern Munich, season in, season out. But you must be able to go toe to toe with them, and you do that by signing good players, by making sure you have a good squad. You've lost Callum Wilson, so that means you get a replacement that is much better than Callum Wilson. You keep players like Anthony Gordon. You keep squad players like Harvey Barnes, who are capable of coming in and score important goals. You keep players like Steven Botman, Fabian Schär, Tino Livramento. Those are the players that you keep. Jacob Murphy, he's already 30 years of age. He's another brilliant squad player. Sandro Tonali, another brilliant player that they do have in that squad, part of the spine of that Newcastle team. So you show intent to a player like Alexander Isak to say, look, you still have a future with us. We can't pay you the good wages, but also we are capable of competing with the big boys. You want to play in the UEFA Champions League season in, season out, and we can qualify with you alongside all the brilliant strikers and targets that we can bring in to improve this team. That's what Ed Howe should be telling Alexander Isak. That's what Newcastle should be doing to show intent to Alexander Isak, that they are committed to building a much bigger project that supersedes just winning the Carabao Cup. That the Carabao Cup was just a stepping stone, that it was the starting point. Just put yourself in an imagination where Newcastle come next season and win the FA Cup and also finish fourth or even third. Wouldn't that have been a successful season? That they qualify past, the league format table of the UEFA Champions League and reach the round of 16, or perhaps even the quarterfinals. They don't need to go any further than that. Not that they cannot go any further than that, but that would be considered a successful season as they continue to progress. So, while I urge Liverpool to break the bank to sign Alexander Isak, if they want to dominate the Premier League, I would also make an argument to tell Newcastle, do not lose your prize, because it is everything. It's what takes you from being, an average team that pushes for a top four every once in 2-3 seasons to a force that can be dominant in terms of competing for that top four place for the next 3-4 seasons. Do let me know what your thoughts are, guys, on those submissions. Should Liverpool break the bank to sign Alexander Isak? Should Newcastle do everything it takes to keep the player? And where should Hugo Ekitike go? In my opinion, I think he would be better off going to Liverpool. But I also understand why Newcastle are trying to sign him, because they know for a fact that for a player like Alexander Isak, at the end of the starting season, if he does stay, he could want to leave for a club like Real Madrid, like Barcelona or Bayern Munich. And at the end of next season, he will have 2 years left with his contract. If it does, by the time he turns 27, he will have only 1 year left with his current contract. So they know for a fact that sooner or later, the player could ask to leave. And once a player expresses a desire to leave, then you may not have, your hands may be a bit tied, because at the end of the day, you do not want to keep an unhappy player. But those are my thoughts. Do let me know what your thoughts are on that topic. Leave me a comment down in the comment section. But also, if you're new to the channel, do not forget to smash that subscribe button. And I'll see you guys next time. Stay blessed and bye-bye.